Nice to meet you all. I am Hinaleimoana Wong Kalu, and I am from my mainland here in Hawaii on the island of Oahu. Uh, a little bit about me. I am from the Valley of Nu'uanu in a place called Pu'unui, and I have done a lot of different things in the course of my journey in this lifetime. The most recent of which has brought me to uh, be involved with filmmaking, and that's how you all got a chance to see the Kapai Mahu animated short, of which we have a full-length documentary. It's still in the works, and we have not completed that yet, but we look forward to doing that in this year. Along with that documentary will be a feature exhibit, which will occupy all of the exhibition space in one of the halls at Bishop Museum. And it will yet again feature the animated film, but also have connection to the rest of the documentary. Kapai Mahu is a story that I chose to highlight because it is but one of the many stories that are a part of our history. And these stories, although there are things that make them larger than life, they are based on elements of our history. And it's how our Polynesian people, bring these stories not only closer to us, but also to help us to remember them, because they're larger than life stories with very valuable life lessons. And so Kapai Mahu is the story of 4 legendary healers that come from Kahiki. And in Hawaii, Hawaii as the center of our world, all foreign lands, in more traditional reference, all foreign lands, no matter where those foreign lands are located, are considered kahiki. It can be used to reference what is now known as Tahiti proper, or the islands of Tahiti. But again, because it's our term, our general term for foreign lands, the beauty of Polynesian language is it could be located on the island now known as Tahiti or somewhere in the region. And 4 legendary healers come from the lands of Kahiki and bring with them the knowledge of healing, the knowledge of medicinal skill and wisdom. And they become very endeared to the people here because they help the people, and they gave people new life, in the healing that they did. And so, please cross the road. Thank you very much. Stop, everyone. Stop. People nowadays don't stop in the islands. So anyway, what is this chat? What does the chat say? Yeah, multitasking. Haha, exactly. So, wait. Hold on. Okay, can you see me now? Great. How many people are on here? I'm curious to know.
There's 28 and 10 of us here in the hotel.
Wow. Okay, cool. So I would say that these healers, they came and they were so loved by the people that as you watched in the story, that 4 large stones were brought from Kaimuki all the way down to Waikiki, and it is a far away. But they brought them all the way down to the seashore, and they spent many a moons leaving their prayers and essentially bequeathing their mana to the stones as a gift for the people, and upon completion of that, they departed. And um, you know, that's just one of the stories that there are to tell. There are so many on every island, but for those of you who may not be familiar with Hawaiian history, you know, or you should know that Hawaii, much like many other islands in Polynesia, the rest of the Pacific Ocean, we are colonized by larger, more greedy, hungry, power hungry, warmongering powers. And so Hawaii is a prime example of what you never want to happen to your respective islands if in fact there's a majority of islanders who happen to be on this. Uh, and who knows, you might actually be closer there than you think. Um, but uh, through American domination and colonization, Hawaii Hawaii continues to endure. And you know, while being a part of the U.S. has brought certain kinds of technological advance to this part of the Pacific, there was a great cost. There was an expense that had to be paid, and it continues to be paid on the laurels of my people, Kanaka. And so for me, you know, the purpose of doing a movie and doing it in my language was to say to the world that we're still alive, and that we should pay proper respect, give honor, and uplift the dignity of our respective places, our people, and our history. Um, on a very personal note, I'm very tired of the kind of American rhetoric that comes to Hawaii. And so my storytelling will reflect Hawaii as my mainland. Um, the place where you all live is not my mainland. It's not the mainland of Kanaka and should never be considered as such. And so, with that in mind, you know, I think it's only fair to say that when we tell stories, we should remember such perspectives, because we grow up here in Hawaii. Maybe it's a little bit different now for this generation now, but I'm someone who will be 49 next month, and we were not taught our history, and any elements of our history that we were taught were very, very superficial and very token, and that is not acceptable. My grandparents from their time were not only scolded, but some were beaten for speaking Hawaiian language. And, and Hawaiian language was made illegal in our own home. Until today, it is not a language that is given the proper respect and its rightful place amongst these islands. Why? Because again, American domination and very stereotypical American train of thought that this is America, you should speak English. Well, this is Hawaii, you're in my country, and you should learn my language. But that is the kind of perspective that I maintain. And if anybody doesn't like it, you guys can go make your own movie. So that's a little bit about me and why I decided to make a film. And it just so happens that the film is talking about something that I'm familiar with. I'm not going to continue on the trajectory of Mahu only related films, because there's so much more to do. But it was an easy doorway for me to springboard to, and so I did it. And I do also have a very personal connection to this film. It has to do with my personal life, and and the person who became my healer in my life, who came from the lands of the South. So with that said, Kapai Mahu, I hope that you all enjoyed it, because it will be a pinnacle in my professional journey, as far as filmmaking goes. We're set to do several other projects now, but Kapai Mahu will forever hold a very important place. But I'd like to answer any other questions that you may have, and any other curiosities that you'd like to ask.
This is Mighty Paul, Big Paul. I just wanted to first of all thank you for bringing a beautiful story. You and I have worked on different through the Pacifica Film Festival. From Kumuhina to this, I think it's been exciting to watch the journey and the growth. When I first caught wind of this film and watched it, there was something about this film that is raw to its essence that tickles any Pacific Islander's soul. I don't care who you are, what you claim, what you think you are. And I wanted to give you your flowers and congratulate you for having this film nominated and shortlisted for this year's Academy Awards.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people don't understand the pioneering in this space. There's a lot of people don't think of us as animators or being able to tell stories, but as powerful storytellers, you know, it would be just so big, from Taika Waititi winning last year to this year. If this film should win, and you know, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, legs crossed, everything I can possibly.
I hate to break it to you, but we made it to the top 10, but we did not make it to the top 5.
I don't care. We won. So I just wanted to give you your flowers and thank you for telling the story. But in Kapai Mahu, there's a part of the story in there that probably resonates with anybody that's listening to this recording or to this conference. And that is that the healers themselves didn't come into the island and start telling everybody what to do. They just showed up and attended to those who asked for it. Big difference. Yes. And as subtle as that was, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, that's what I got out of it. As voyagers or as journey people that are traveling and arriving into lands that are not theirs, they were grateful enough to, first of all, land safely. They received the aloha, but then they waited until they were needed, and then they raised their hand. Then they stepped forward. It wasn't like, hey, I'm here, I'm going to take over, let me tell you how to live better, how to fish better, how to grow better. They arrived and assimilated to the culture and to the people of the land. And that was powerful to me in this story, Hina.
Thank you. We wanted to make sure that we conveyed a more accurate version of how we islanders do things. We islanders come from a culture of we, not me. And obviously being in service to others is one of the most important values, right?
100%.
Yes. So what more questions would you like to ask me? So while you're feeding me questions, I'm driving, trying to think of where I'm going to get my mother her next meal. My mother doesn't like my cooking, so I am tasked with fetching her meal from someplace where I think that she might like.
Hina, can you tell us what you do for a profession, your everyday work?
Oh, what do I do? I'm all over the place. Most of the time I'm a mess, really. But my day job, I work for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and I am a community advocate. So anything that I can do to help elevate the conditions of my people and my community here, including providing learning opportunities, workshops. Prior to COVID-19, I brought my program over when I came to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. It continues to remain under me, although COVID restrictions have not let me back into the prison facilities. I was maintaining 2 classes, one in the Oahu Community Correctional Center for pretrial individuals, and one in the Halava Valley Correctional Facility, which is for post-sentencing folks. My classes are in the Kane, or the male section of the OCCC, and as far as Halava, there's only men in Halava, so it's either men or trans women, because if the trans woman is not post-operative trans woman, then they are housed with the men. So those are the people that come to my class. And that's the whole Hawaiian population that I was most recently working with, doing cultural-based cognitive skills and sort of, how do you say it, life preparation. My classes are oriented around gearing up and being mentally and emotionally ready to get out. It doesn't matter how long they're going to stay in my class or how long their sentence is. The end goal is always to focus on, once they get out, what will they do with their life? How will they look at the world? And what kinds of cultural tools can they acquire prior to getting out to prepare them to engage the world in a different way? That's probably, when I reflect, it's one of the most rewarding things that I've done in the last couple of years. I actually miss teaching class because it keeps me grounded and it keeps me humble. But within the incarceration system here, my classes are not mandatory, and therefore the correctional facility is not required to honor hosting my class until such time that COVID restrictions change to the next tier, at least. But yeah, that's one of the things I do. I am also outgoing burial council representative and the current chair. I did not make my reappointment for another term of 4 years because I was a political mouthpiece that helped to spearhead reform. But the political and economic powers that be decided that I spoke a little too loudly, and so I was not reappointed. But I'm not afraid to say that, because for any of you who are listening, I don't know what life is like there for you all in the States, but here in the islands, it is absolutely unacceptable to be a native in your own homeland and to be treated like unwanted guests or token guests that can be capitalized upon at the whim and the will of government and economics. That's not acceptable to me, and therefore I'll simply say that the people have yet to see the last of me. But now they made a big mistake, because as someone who served at least 14 years on the borough council here on my island, we oversee the disposition and treatment of ancestral burials that obviously through the course of time and through massive urbanization and really just disregard, because my people my people come from a history of not only disenfranchisement but great exodus, because my people are taught to embrace the American dream, and they run over there to that land that you guys are in, and the more they leave, the more foreigners come in. So um, there's much to be said for what happens in our community and how our burials are treated. So I'm the outgoing chair of that. That's another thing that I've been involved with. Um, what else? Yeah, that's some of the highlights. That's not the only thing I'm involved with, but that's the highlights.
Hina, can you tell us how many Pacific Island languages you speak?
Oh, why do you want me to do that? And then I'm not gonna have fun because then people are gonna know that I'm gonna understand what's being said about me, and then I won't have a good laugh when people talk smack about me because, you know, that's the fun part is when somebody who's speaking in Samoan or Tongan might see me and go, yeah, vaya lale, vaya fafa finge, or chat chat chat, koi fufare ti, and oh way, and then I turn around and say, excuse me, I understand you. Tapu foki ke mo te lea mai ka te au. No te mo ai mea mamo tai mi mea whapiko. Or au ke whape ngā mai akia. Rai o o malam lama li nganga fa Samoa. Sorry, I'm letting the people go. Yeah, Tongan, in descending order, I speak my language and then I speak Tongan. I can manage conversational Samoan to an extent, and then Tahitian after that. But you know, what's more important is for me to say to you all that if you know your language, especially if it's a Polynesian language, it becomes very easy for you to learn the dialect of another island if you only know how to be clever enough to, you know, to do what you must to learn how to change it around and to understand it. That's the fun part.
So I'm going to ask you a question, Hina. What
Yes.
is the appropriate pronoun, or is it comfortable to call you mahu, transgender? What is the right thing we should use?
You know that. Thank you for that question. If you come from a very Western setting, you will understand the current climate for asking these things. Gender pronouns, they, them, theirs. I come from a generation that doesn't care to use they, them, theirs because it's to me it's indicative of the plural, but in the physical body form. Spiritually, my understanding of my spiritual understanding of somebody who is Mahu, much akin to how our Native American brother and sister friends acknowledge Two Spirit. My life's experiences have taught me that there's a whole lot of truth to knowing about the duality of spirit existing in one body. But back to your question, people who know me and people who are in my circle will say she, they will say her. They don't necessarily pay too much attention to the fact that my voice is lower than most of their husbands, but I really don't care because that's not my problem. That's theirs. I don't hear anybody laughing, so I'll assume that I'll just make like it was funny. Anyway,
We're all muted.
I was on mute. I was on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. We were laughing.
well, I just wanted to get a rise out of everyone to see if you're all still awake and not bored by my carrying on. But yes, so you know, unlike other trans sisters of mine, right now, I try not to pay too much attention when I hear somebody say, oh, he or him, because I don't like to trifle my time with people who are pretty much dumb. I would say just dumb. I'm not trying to present physical female. just because you listen to my voice, obviously means that you're only focusing, either your thoughts are focusing between my legs, wanting to know what's between them, which is none of anybody's business. And number two, you're focusing on my voice. So if those two things are the extent of someone's focus, then I'd say that that person is pretty shallow. And I have no need to engage you. People who are paying attention will see that I'm doing my best effort to present more female than male. However, because of the world that I live in and because of the people that I engage with, I tend to be very tomboyish because I don't want to be perceived as a weak female or a weak trans woman. I refuse to be taken advantage of, and I refuse to be treated like trash or like somebody's toilet or somebody's doormat, of which I have allowed myself to be in years past. Those days are over. So yeah, those are the pronouns that I use. You know, if people can't get over it, I does it upset me? No. Does it irritate me? Yes, because it just tells me that people aren't paying attention. But from a different perspective, you know, from a Polynesian rooted perspective, where Hawaii and the Moana Nui or the Pacific is my mainland and my highway, although I get seasick very easily. You know, we have a culture that the pronoun is all inclusive. And any Polynesian who speaks their language will know what the pronoun is. It's oya or goya. And either, no matter what the dialect, oya and goya is he, she, and it. So we already come from a sophisticated society and culture where we understand not only the duality of spirit, but the fluidity of sexual desire, sexual expression, gender expression, and fluidity. You know, my personal experience is that amongst the men folk whom I consider men, they certainly do not look at me as anything near their equivalent and nothing near being called man. So that's why they say she. Because it would be offensive to them to call me man. You know, because then that means that that they'd be anything like me, and you know, I don't think that they'd want that. But life is complex, and so are our personalities and our understanding. So as far as identifying, you know, when it comes to relationships, I you know, I am only known to have preference and fondness for men who do not identify as being gay or mahu, because that's just the way of the world. And no, I'm not interested in biological females. That's not for me either. So yeah, that should tell you just about it. But again, the reason why I told you that is because I know that you see, you are able to perceive the world through those eyes. In my realm of Hawaiian thinking, I don't need to show you my genitalia, and I don't need to tell you what's on my plate personally. But hey, we're here to learn tonight, right? So anyway, how's
Hoku
that
has
for an
a
answer to your
question.
question?
Hoku has a question for you.
Oh,
Okay.
aloha Hina. This is Hoku.
Aloha.
Well, first, just thank you so much. I love the Kapai Mahu short video, and especially, I guess one thing that I'm struck by as I'm rewatching that is those gifts that each of them brought with them.
Yes.
And I'm mindful in this space of the many gifts that all of us bring. I know a lot of us are coming from various fields of helping and healing, and also just want to recognize those gifts that you bring, and because I think in developing those gifts, we have to share them, and that sharing them is vulnerable. Like that's kind of the scary work to do, and so I've just been admire kind of your willingness to share your own gifts. So I was just wondering too, and the topic of the conference is on violence and on discrimination. And I was wondering, with your own experience and in the spaces you engage, because you experience this as Kanaka in your homeland, and also as Mahu. And I want to thank you because you mentioned, speaking too loudly in some spaces. And I can imagine that that intersects with a lot of those discriminatory kind of practices. And but I just want to thank you for being willing to make your voice heard, in these spaces in OHA and so forth. But I guess I wanted to ask, how do you kind of navigate those challenges as Kanaka, as Mahu, and
How do I navigate?
yeah, if you could share that with us, thank you.
Mahalo. Very easily. Very easily. I live in my homeland. Foreigners don't get to tell me what to do in my homeland, period. They can take a hike. And they can certainly take me on, but may the best man, woman, or Mahu win. Period. Yeah, I find it just absolutely rude and offensive and insulting that, I, as someone who is in my home, have to be subject to not only this kind of treatment, but the kind of attitudes that come with people in political and economic power. For example, here in Hawaii, we are often capitalized on to sell Hawaii to the world. Our state government tends to, well, I can't necessarily generalize too much, but there are those forces here that would prostitute our culture, sell it for a quick buck, turn it around, and not necessarily contribute back to the very culture and the very people that they capitalized on. And if unchecked, there would be so much rampant cultural appropriation, even more than what goes on so far. For example, when people name public spaces and places, name buildings, name projects, they figure, oh, well, we should give it a Hawaiian name. But oftentimes it's so token, because they're taking something from Western thought and concept and trying to make it palatable in what they view as Hawaiian language and culture. And then they turn around and sell it and market it for their own profit or their own gain. Or people will utilize culture and it looks nice, it feels good, but there's no real integrity to, some of the cultural stuff that they put out. Good examples. Here on this island, there's a burger place, and they combined the two words mahalo and aloha, and they call it mahaloha burger. And I refuse to eat there. I'm not giving you any of my money, and I'm not even going to try you. I don't care how good you are. I refuse to go to some place that has done that, has just appropriated, two of the most important words ever to a Hawaiian, mahalo and aloha, and you put mahaloha. I call it mahaoi. Mahaoi means rude or insulting or impertinent. Mahaoi. They should have called it mahaoi burger. Would have been better. But I don't feel the need to try to sugarcoat anymore. I'll be diplomatic, but I don't need to be ashamed, and I don't need to be afraid of that, because I wasn't raised to be somebody's doormat. I was not raised to be somebody's yes person, and I was not raised to just reduce the dignity and honor and respect of my people to somebody else's wishes and wants. That's the perspective that I come from. So when you ask me, you know, how do I do it? It's very, very easy. In fact, I tend to sit in a lot of things. I could sit in a meeting, sit in a legislative hearing, and before too long, you know, my hair, you know, I'll start to bristle at things because of the things that I'm hearing, and people just don't even think about it. They think it's okay. But anyway, enough for Hawaii. Haha, Susie. Thank you. But what can I say? You know, did I answer some of your questions?
Yeah, thank you. And I was struck by and appreciate and admire that, because I think it can take quite a lot of work to work up to that kind of confidence, you know, to own our space. And
That's right.
and I think yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And by the way, yes, all of you who are listening here, if you're gonna go away from this this session, I'm like, oh, that was so nice, and then go back into being somebody who's just a token yes person. I'm not saying that you are, but I'm just saying, if you're not going to take something away and apply it if it's usable, because it's going to help you to be stronger or more confident or something like that, then you should log off now. It don't, you know, you're not letting it serve you. But if you're going to use this opportunity to say, hey, I can do it, or hey, I don't have to I don't have to continue being in this way. I too can own my space, and I can put my language and my culture forward and let it carry me, and not allow it to be compromised just because somebody else said, you know, something. Then good on you. You know, and when it comes to my own Hawaiian community, because many of my fellow Hawaiians love them, kiss, kiss, hug, hug, but many of my fellow Hawaiians are very colonized, they're very westernized, and they do not see the world in the same way as speakers of our language, like native speakers, tend to see the world. And interpersonal relationships, and how do I say it? You know, cues and responses to just general things in life. It's different. People who speak Hawaiian here at home, and I'm, you know, my family from the island of Ni'ihau who still speaks Hawaiian as an everyday language are far more akin to our Tongan and Samoan and Tahitian and other Polynesian cousins than being akin to other Hawaiians, because the mindset is the same. So my mindset and my heart set is clearly driven and guided and informed by my Ni'ihau nurturing and growing experience, as well as Tongan influence. Do we have any Tongans here in tonight?
Yes.
Yay! Yay!
Well, then every Tongan here should know about the peadu. Ko hai koe. Ko hai koe ke tutuni me koe ka te ao. Ko hai koe ke sipoto e pe agi mautolu tangata I fonua ho mau fonua. He? You know, like, ane fe ia. Ko hai koe ke pe te ke hau. O tu unika mautolu e mau me e whai. O ko hai nane whakotuu koe ke hoko koe pūre. Ke hoko hore o ko ha mea te mau tuku lolo ki ai, mo ha mea ke mau ulo katoa ki ai. I kai hala ia. Do you see the Tongan influence?
Yeah, but I think it's scary that you have it with the tongue and attitude in your dialect also.
Oh, that's not scary. You ain't seen the best of me yet, honey. Maria.
Kumu, Leone has a question for you.
Yonge.
Mai kawa e ke hoa. No leila o yai
Aloha
oi.
kaawa.
Aloha. O yai oi.
Ah.
Olelo maka olelo tonga. Olelo ana kawa maka olelo Hawaii. O ko umi
Ai.
oi. Mahalo nui a oi no ka ho'olu ana I ka ke a'o ako ada I komako mau po'e lahui me keia mau mele a me keia mau ki'oni'oni a keia mau mo'olelo. Ia oi e haku mele, haku oli, a haku ki'oni'oni, pehea la I pā I ko na'au, pehea la I noi'i. Ia'u ma'ane'i, wa ho'omaka wau me keoli I haku ia e Kaimana Bakarsi no na po'e ma Utah. Ia'u no'ono wau make wau e haku ke kahi a ka a'ohe au ike paha no leila pehea oi e ho'omaka ai me ka noi'i ana. And for those who don't understand Hawaiian, I basically just asked Hina how she goes about, if you don't know, she's a wonderful artist with our mele and our oli and now movies. And I wanted to know what inspires her and how she goes about researching and finding these stories. Mahalo ti.
Ai. Hikino ia'u ke pane aku I kau ni nau mai akano na e olu e alia iki. Hold on, everybody. I'm ordering mommy's lunch. Give me a moment. Okay. Hi, could I please have
I love this. Thank you so much, everyone, for being so involved and asking your questions, especially for sharing the beautiful different languages that we all speak. This is really why we wanted to have this kind of talk story during this conference and in this model, because this is how we share, and the stories that we have to share are so important, because you wouldn't hear this really
by itself
personal and vulnerable sides of the stories if you sit in other conferences that you attend. And these are very personal stories that people feel comfortable here sharing. And so I'm so grateful that all of you are here to share with us. So think of your all of your questions that you want to ask Kumu as she is with us at this time. And then when she comes on, we can get those questions through before we move on to our next speaker.
Okay.
Extra sauce, please. Extra sauce.
I know, oh my gosh. So mahalo. Thank you. You too.
I pick it out of my
Hawe, kana tau I hen tau feitu taha pe, ke tau kai mo ke tau lave, lamu mo lave. Oia, felafaki foki. Kata fone more kai geu. I left apa koe. I know ia foki. Atu ngā pe ne.
I go we got whole again.
No, thank you. Motolia kau ho iki. One can never presume that the Ho'iki are not present through the descendants in the room. Mahalo. Thank you. So, okay, as I get back on the road, Mamo no e tau pane ani tau ni nau mahalo nui ya oi te leone no to bamnao me to hobe ana ya lako e piliana no tau me ini nau me ya Elike no me takao me e maupopo nei.
No,
Kaua, ai. Katou po e kanaka. No I katou aina hanau. Te ano o ka lave hana, te ano ka noho ana, te ano ka no'o, te ano o tapilina ketahi. Pela no e loa ai a kātou, pela no e loa ai au, to umau manao, no ta umau mele I hatu ai. E like no me te lahi meni o kuha heo, te mele o kuha heo. A ole wau I hatu I te lahi meni no ta pono o Mauna Kea, a ole. Wa hatu no wau I te lahi meni no ta pono o ta umau haumana, ta poe kamari. O wau tumukula nei te lamanawa. Tumukula no wau I ta kula ho āmana o halau lokahi. Ho mana o no paha oi tātou kula no wau, pehea la. He hala ta ume e hanai, he hala ta u haawina e hatu ai. I lilo te la haawina, I haawina tū mau, I haawina tā mau. A e mau loa ana no te la haawina he mea vai no kanaka, he mea vai no kalahui. A no wau e aho no paha, e hatu au ke tahi mele, ke tahi himeni. A pela no I loa ai e u te la mau pautu e ha, o te mele o kuha aheo. No wau. A oia. Ma loko noho I o tauhimeni e ite I ai to mau manao me to aloha me to una au. No to kawa ai na hanau. No to kawa la hui aloha. He nui no na hewa. He nui no na hewa ta poe Amerika I hanai. Ia kato poe Hawaii, kato poe Kanaka. Nui no na ano hana ino na ano poe mela poe lau no olili ole a pauloa. Nui no to lako. Lima lave aihu e wale. Aihu e wale. A ho emi a te ehi. Te ehi ia hoi. Tamato poe lahui Kanaka e noho nei I ta aina hanau. Unacceptable to know our history here in Hawaii, to know, I'm criticized by other Hawaiians, especially Hawaiians of my parents' generation, because they were raised to be American and they were raised to only embrace a sanitized version and view of what is Hawaiian. They took all of the pretty colored things, the things that had flowers and sweet smelling stuff on it, but they don't know the other elements of our culture. So Leone, to answer your question, I take everyday things in life, our ways, our culture, our ways of knowing and seeing, and I let that guide me in how to write my mele, how to write my songs. And I believe that the true way to get a start on your own composition writing is to simply let your heart flow. How do you feel about things? How do you feel about the people around you? How do you feel about what you do? And all of you who are out there, Leone, I don't know if you all know, but I know, Leone, you've been away from home for quite some time, haven't you?
Umi kumakahi mau makahiki.
Aye. So, you all have one of our wonderful resources. As long as I have known Leone to do what she does, you have remained ever so dedicated. Every time I see you and I hear you, and every time you engage me, you always engage me in our language, and I respect and I appreciate that so much. I'm gonna speak so everybody can understand what I'm saying, because if we had more people like you, that no matter if you are in the homeland or if you leave, that we know that our culture would live, but you know, not everybody has remained as steadfast as you have been. So if you ask me, I think you only need to just sit with yourself for a while, reflect on how you feel, and pour your heart out into your mele. But you have it already. You know, you what I did to learn more about composition and songwriting and chant writing and writing my own you know, verses for the hula that I've taught. Western composition tends to be real blunt and flat and tell you on your face. But Polynesian composition, kauna, we say kauna, or multiple layers of meaning. In Tongan, it's heliaki. I'm not sure what the Samoan word for multiple layers of meaning might be, but I know those two words. And how I developed the way I can write songs is by studying Tongan compositions and more traditional Hawaiian text. That's how I did it. And to know the metaphor and to actually see how the minds of older composers and poets, how they thought and saw the world. That's how I gained, you know, much insight. So I would say that to you, you know, ina oe ini oe e hatu tau mau mele. Hiti no. Tau me wale no e imi aku ma kahi o to waiho na mele, ai no I loko na nupepa, ai no I loko o na puke I kātau ia, na mele he nui, na mele a kala kau, na puke like ole. O oe ua maupopo mua no ia oe te ia mau mea, na naku no oe imi a noi I no oe. A ole ia he hana nui hana pakati. He hana no ia I hiti a katoa pauloa te hana. You just have to search your heart, search your na'au, search your gut. You know, we here in Hawaii, for those of you online, we know our pu'uwai is the hill of water. It's the physical heart, but it's not the repository of our emotions. Our emotions are in our gut. So we say na'au. So another word that can be used is manava. But I mahalo nui a oe tau ni nau no ia ua hui kalamai no ua kata ua leka wila mino oe ia ua a ole kawa I hui aku. Wa ona ka ni ua ia oe tau hele kare pona?
Ua I ke wau ka ahana no no e kama I leo kawa mahope.
Pila no tau paahana me tau paahana malaila. Oe te a o nei no oe to olelo matuahine malaila?
Ke a o aku nei wau ma BYU.
Oh, mahalo nui e Yesu. Mahalo nui ke atua, ho I te tano ia oe, a lilo oe tumkula malaila. Ho I te tano oe ka nui hana una kanaka. A me na po e a paulo e tomu aku I loko o tau papa o lelo matuahine o lelo Hawaii e. Ai.
Mahalo nui ia.
Oh, roads. Mahalo. Do you all see how much turbulence I'm experiencing? These roads in Honolulu are absolutely atrocious. I feel like I'm in the country. It's, how do I say it? Insulting to think that this is the capital of these islands with roads like this. But that's because there's so many people here that you can't keep up. By the time you repave, you got to repave again.
Kumu, I want to thank you so much for all of your sharing, and especially for sharing your talent of all the many languages that you speak. But you know, and in talking about the spirit of things, I don't even speak my own language very fluently, but I can speak enough to communicate in Tongan and Samoan and feel like I can understand everything you say when you speak Hawaiian, because like you said, we are moved by that spirit and feel that aloha when you are in tune. And so I love
Right.
that we were able to do this at this summit. I was wondering, I don't know if you can because you're driving, if you could share one of your meles that you have written with us in closing out our time with you.
I see that Susie has got to you, didn't she? That's Susie's influence. She wanted me to sing. Okay. He mele te ia na mahalo nui ia otoa pauloa. No, I didn't say. I'm just pulling at your leg. Isn't that what Palangi people say? I'm just pulling at your leg, something like that. I'm just kidding, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, how do I begin? Josh Tatofi, whom is my fellow church member, I have two churches that I have known in my lifetime, and that's the Ni'ihau Church and the Free Church of Tonga. Siasa Tonga Ta'otaina. My church life has influenced the songs that I write as well. So Josh Tatofi and I wrote this song in Hilo after both he and I had spent 2 separate times up at Mauna Kea during our people's struggle. And it goes, it's a song for the Lahui. You can find it. So, song goes, Evelo maolo ku ohai aloha ikanu uo ka levala nihila ai maluhi a nona kaua kau e o Hawaii ku'aina aloha e ku'ulahu e iwo ole kukanaka e onipa mau ua mau ke au ka ainai ka pono ua mau ke au ka ainai ka pono e velo mauloa ku'u hai aloha i ka nu'u ka levala nila ai maluhi a nona kaua kau e o Hawaii ku'aina aloha e ku'ulahu e vivo ole kukanaka e onipa mau a mau ke au ka ainai ka pono ua mau ke au ka ainai ka pono ua mau ke au ka ainai ka pono ua mau ke au ka ainai ka pono. Ano Leila, Te rano, ta puana o ka ina, ta umele, waiho nei na outou no, olu mai, waiho aku, I loko to outou na au, no ta o tu ana I kato hala wai o te ia. O leo mahalo anui ho I ke ia oti, ia oe kitahi ta, ia oe ne ho me tua paulo kai tipa mai I loko o ta o tua paulo ne to leo mahalo me to leo aloha ho I te ia outou. Tuku atu ha whakamalo ka te mautolu ka inga tonga mo ka inga kotoa me he ot pasifiki pia mo feitu una whaka apa ki he feitu una me mo tangata I whonua me he whonua ko e nā tau whawheta me tau hiki ho tau leo ki he otua mafi I olunga me uku ne mawhei e mea kotoa. Tau fia me tau haka I langi tau. He ngahi monu, ngahi whainga maari e hono kotoa pe whaki mai me olunga. Ka inga mausi mea mai pe ki he whiawhini tau polo kalamani. O kuo tuku atu e ku whamalo, mo e ku ofa atu ka tiki mautolu. Ia malo, a ho mo whawhi iau ke o kau ngā kau mo wau I he polo kalamani o e whiawhini. Whaka apa lahi atu. Lewe mala.
Malo.
Thank you so much
Malo.
for being with us. Please give our alofas to your mom when you get there with her food.
Yes, it's her lunch. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for having. I'm sorry that I'm not just sitting in one place, but maybe it'll make your Zoom interesting. Aren't you guys tired of seeing Zoom and everybody just sitting nicely on the, on the camera? You caught like real life action. You got to see the bad roads of Honolulu. But thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to spend time. Mahalo nui.
Thank you so much. Mahalo.